There are things that happen in front of a live studio audience that no producer scripts and no host expects. Most of them are funny, some of them are beautiful, and occasionally something happens that stops the room cold. Not because it is shocking in a dramatic way, but because it is so ordinary, so familiar, so deeply recognized by the people watching, that it cuts right through every layer of entertainment and lands somewhere personal. That is what happened on a Thursday afternoon taping of Family Feud in the winter of 2023, when a husband from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, stood on one of the most watched game show stages in America, and in the space of 4 minutes, treated his wife like she was invisible. He cut her off. He corrected her in front of 200 people. He dismissed her answer with a wave of his hand like you might wave away a fly. He spoke over her, and then, when she turned to him with a quiet, patient expression that said everything about how long she had been doing this, he told her to go get him a bottle of water from the side table. On live television, in front of Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey, who has seen everything on that stage in 15 years, went quiet. And when Steve Harvey goes quiet, something is about to happen. This is the story of what happened next, and why millions of women and more than a few men watched it and said, "Finally, someone said it." Gloria Tibidoks was 54 years old, and she had been managing other people's comfort for most of her adult life. First as the oldest daughter in a household of 6 kids in Lafayette, Louisiana, and then for 29 years as the wife of Kenneth Tibidoks, a 57-year-old civil engineer who had built a career designing drainage systems for municipalities across the Gulf Coast. Kenneth was good at his work. He was meticulous, detail-oriented, and he had very clear ideas about how things ought to be done. He applied those ideas to his job, to his yard, to his truck, and more than Gloria would have chosen to her. They had met at a church social in Lafayette in 1994. He had been the kind of man who pulled out chairs and opened car doors, and Gloria's mother had called him a gentleman before he had even finished his first cup of sweet tea. Marriage had revealed more of him than the courtship had. Not a villain. Nothing so clean as that. Just a man who had grown up watching his own father be served and had absorbed that as the natural order of things without ever examining it. Over 29 years, the pattern had become so established that neither of them spoke about it anymore. Kenneth decided where they ate, what they watched, where they vacationed. Gloria managed the house, managed the kids. They had 3. Marcus, 28, Denise, 25, and the youngest, Yvette, 21, and managed the social calendar that kept their lives running smoothly. She had worked for 12 years as an office administrator at a pediatric clinic in Baton Rouge, a job she was genuinely good at. Before Kenneth had suggested, during their second pregnancy, that it would be better for the family if she stayed home. She had agreed. She was still not entirely sure why. The Family Feud application had been Denise's idea. Denise, who had watched her parents for 25 years with the particular clear-eyed accuracy that children develop about their families, thought that a fun public event might do something for her mother that the private world of their household had slowly worn away, make her feel seen. She had filled out the application over a weekend, written the Why Your Family essay with genuine care, and submitted it without telling anyone until the acceptance call came. Kenneth had been enthusiastic immediately. He liked performing, liked an audience, liked the idea of being on television. Gloria had been quieter about it, but there was something in her eyes when Denise told her that Denise recognized cautious hope. The 5-person team was Kenneth, Gloria, Denise, their son Marcus, and Kenneth's younger brother Roland, who drove in from New Orleans for the occasion. They wore matching forest green shirts. Gloria had ironed all 5 of them the night before. Nobody had asked her to. It was simply understood. The Tibidoks family was matched against the Park family from Nashville, Tennessee, a tight-knit group of 4 siblings and their mother, Soon-Yi Park, a 6-7-year-old retired pharmacist who had emigrated from South Korea in 1981 and whose quiet humor had the studio audience charmed within 30 seconds of her first exchange with Steve Harvey. The game opened with the face-off, which Kenneth won. He buzzed in fast, delivered swimming to the question about summer activities with the confidence of a man who expected to be right, and was. He turned to his family with both arms raised, already celebrating. Gloria smiled. She was good at that particular smile. The one that said she was present without requiring any space. The first round went reasonably well. Kenneth played aggressively, pushing past other family members when he felt like he had the answer, occasionally finishing sentences that Denise or Marcus had started. Roland, who was clearly used to his brother, simply laughed it off. Gloria answered once. A clean, confident answer that scored well, and Kenneth nodded at her the way you nod at someone who has correctly followed instructions. Steve Harvey noticed. He did not say anything yet, but those who knew his work could see it in the slight shift of his posture. The way he watched Kenneth without quite looking like he was watching. The way he directed a few extra seconds of warmth toward Gloria. When it was her turn, the pattern sharpened in the second round. It started during the family huddle, one of those moments when the whole team clusters together to choose their answer before committing. Gloria leaned in and said something quietly. Kenneth shook his head before she had finished the sentence. No, no, it's grocery store. He said it to the group, not to her. The family went with his answer. It was a strike. Gloria's answer had been pharmacy. The board revealed it as the number 2 response. Steve Harvey looked at the board. He looked at Gloria. Gloria was already looking somewhere neutral, not at the board, not at Kenneth, just at a point in the middle distance that she had clearly practiced finding. Then Kenneth leaned over, not toward Gloria particularly, but in a general side of stage direction, and said with the offhand tone of someone asking for the remote control, "Gloria, grab me that water, would you?" He gestured at the small side table near the family's position where production had set out bottles of water for the contestants. Gloria moved to get it. It took Steve Harvey exactly 2 seconds to decide. Hold on. His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. It was the voice of a man who has learned that the quieter you speak, the more carefully people listen. Gloria stopped. Kenneth looked at Steve with the mild confusion of a man who does not yet understand that something has shifted. "Sir," Steve said. And the sir landed with a very specific weight, respectful on the surface, something more precise underneath. "You got 2 legs. You see that table as well as she does?" The audience's reaction was not a roar. It was something better, a collective exhalation, a release of held breath, followed by applause that built slowly but built completely. The kind that means people recognized something. Kenneth laughed, the reflex laugh of a man who has been caught off guard and is deciding how to handle it. "I was just asking her." "I know what you were doing," Steve said, still calm, still precise. "I've got a..." What happened in the next 4 minutes was not a confrontation. That is the important distinction, and it is the reason the moment resonated the way it did with the people who watched it. Steve Harvey did not shame Kenneth T. Tibidoks. He did not lecture him in the way that produces defensiveness and noise. He did something more considered. He turned his full attention to Gloria, and he gave her the floor. "Gloria," he said, moving toward her with the ease of a man who has learned to make physical space feel like generosity. "I want to ask you something. How long you been married?" 29 years, she said. 29 years. Steve repeated it the way he repeats things when he wants a number to sit in the room for a moment. "And in 29 years, what's the thing you're best at? Not in the house, not for the family, for you. What are you good at?" Gloria looked at him. The question had clearly caught her off balance, not uncomfortably, but genuinely. It was her expression suggested, not a question she was regularly asked. She thought for a moment. Then she said, "I'm a good reader of people. I always know what somebody needs before they ask for it." "Say that again," Steve said. "I can read people. I know what they need." "That's called emotional intelligence," Steve said, turning briefly to address the audience. "And let me tell you something. That is one of the rarest and most valuable things a human being can have. You cannot teach it. You either got it or you don't." He turned back to Gloria. "And you've been using it for 29 years to make everybody around you comfortable. That's a gift." He paused. "Are people using it to make you comfortable too?" The question hung in the air. Gloria did not answer it directly, but she did not need to. The look on her face, not sad, not angry, just honest in the way faces get honest when someone asks the right question, said everything the audience needed to hear. The audience was completely still. Kenneth Tibidoks, to his credit, was also still. He was not looking at the audience or the camera. He was looking at his wife, and whatever was moving across his face in that moment was something private, but it was moving. Denise, standing at the end of the family line, had tears running down her face. She was not trying to stop them. Steve Harvey let the moment breathe. Then he spoke again, and this time he addressed the room as much as the family. "I'm going to tell you something from experience," he said. "I have not always been the husband I should have been. I have been that man who took things for granted, who assumed that because somebody loves you, they'll absorb whatever you put down. And I'm here to tell you, that's not love. That's convenience. Love is when you notice. Love is when you ask. Love is when you get your own water." The audience laughed, grateful, Released laughter, the kind that follows something true. Steve turned back to Kenneth. Sir, I'm not coming for you. I'm talking to you man to man because I've been there, and somebody had to say it to me too. Kenneth Thibodeau nodded, slowly. Then he looked at Gloria and said two words quietly enough that the main microphone barely caught them, but they were there on the tape when production reviewed it afterward. I'm sorry. Gloria looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached over and put her hand on his arm. Not dramatically, not for the cameras, just the gesture of a woman who has loved someone for 29 years and knows that some apologies are the beginning of something rather than the end. Okay, she said softly, okay. The audience stood, all of them. And Denise, at the end of the family line, put her hands over her face and cried in a way that was not at all embarrassing, because everyone in the room understood exactly what she was crying about. The Tibidoks family made it to fast money. They had pulled together in the final rounds of the game with a focus and a warmth that had been notably absent at the start of the afternoon. Kenneth deferred to Gloria twice, genuinely deferred, asking her opinion before committing to an answer. And both times she was right. The family won the round. The crowd, who had been invested from the moment Steve Harvey said hold on, cheered them through every answer like they had known them for years. In fast money, Kenneth went first and scored 112 points, respectable but short of the target. Gloria stepped up to the podium, and Steve Harvey stood beside her for just a moment before the clock started. You got this, he said quietly. She answered all 5 questions with the calm efficiency of a woman who has been reading people and situations correctly for decades. She just had not always been given credit for it. Her answers were precise, considered, and exactly what the survey had said. She scored 128 points. The combined total was 240. The Tibidoks family won $20,000. When the board confirmed the winning total, Kenneth Thibodeau did something that nobody in the room expected, and that became, in the weeks following the episode's airing, the image most associated with the story. He took both of Gloria's hands, turned to face her directly, and said loudly enough for the microphone to catch it clearly, "That was all you. That's always been you." The studio erupted. Gloria laughed, a full, unguarded laugh that was different from every careful smile she had produced earlier in the afternoon. Denise hugged her from one side. Marcus grabbed his father in a hug from the other. Roland, who had been mostly quiet throughout the entire emotional arc of the afternoon, wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and looked at the ceiling the way men do when they are not quite ready to cry in. The public. Steve Harvey stood back and watched all of it. He did not try to narrate it or bring the camera back to himself. He just let it happen. The way you let something happen when you understand that you've done your part and the rest belongs to them. The episode aired 7 weeks later. Within 24 hours of its broadcast, the clip of Steve Harvey saying "you got 2 legs" had been viewed more than 32 million times. But again, as had become a pattern with Family Feud's most resonant moments, it was not the sharpest moment that people kept sharing. It was the question, what are you good at? Not for the house, not for the family. That question appeared in countless personal essays, social media posts, and private messages exchanged between women who had watched the clip and recognized something in Gloria's pause before answering. The beat of time that a person needs when they are trying to remember something about themselves they have not thought about in a while. Gloria Thibodeau appeared on one national morning program 2 months after the episode aired. She was composed, thoughtful, and precise, exactly as she had been on stage. When the host asked how things were at home since the airing, she smiled and said, "Different. Better he gets his own water now." The audience laughed. Gloria laughed with them, and this time the laugh reached all the way to her eyes. She mentioned that Denise had started sending her articles about women returning to the workforce after long career breaks, that they had begun having conversations about what Gloria might want to do next, for herself, with the skills she had spent 30 years applying entirely in service of other people. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I'm thinking about it. That's new." Kenneth Thibodeau did not appear on any programs and did not make any public statements. Denise, in a brief comment she posted on her personal page the day the episode aired, wrote, "My dad is a good man who had some things to learn. He's learning them. That's all I'm going to say, and that's enough." It was shared 200,000 times. Steve Harvey addressed the episode in an extended interview 4 weeks after it aired. He was asked whether he had hesitated before speaking, whether there had been a calculation involved. "No calculation," he said. "There was no calculation. I saw a woman go to get a bottle of water for a man with 2 worky." NG legs. On a stage she had every right to be standing on as an equal, and something in me just said no, not here. Not on my watch. He paused. I've been married. I know how these patterns form. They don't form because a man is evil. They form because nobody stops them. And sometimes all it takes is somebody saying, hold on. Just those two words, hold on. He was also asked whether he had worried about overstepping, about inserting himself into a marriage that was not his business. It became my business the moment it happened on my stage, he said. And honestly, I think it became everybody's business the moment Gloria's face did what it did when he asked her. Every woman in that audience recognized that face. I'm not going to pretend I didn't see it. Marriage counselors and family therapists began referencing the clip in sessions as an entry point for conversations about domestic labor, invisible effort, and the slow erosion of a person's sense of individual identity within a long marriage. Several wrote publicly about it, about the particular power of the scene being witnessed by an audience, about how visibility changes things, about how sometimes the most profound interventions are the quietest ones. One therapist, writing in a professional publication 3 months after the episode aired, noted, Steve Harvey did not save Gloria Thibodeau's marriage. Kenneth Thibodeau and Gloria Thibodeau will do that, or they won't, in the private space that belongs to them. What Steve Harvey did was name something out loud that had existed in silence for a very long time. And naming a thing, seeing it clearly, saying it plainly is always the first step. The $20,000 the Thibodeau family won was used, Gloria shared in her morning show appearance, to pay for a trip to Portugal, something she had wanted to do for 15 years and had never quite gotten to. Kenneth had booked it, she said. He had asked her where she wanted to go, and then he had booked it. He didn't pick, she said. He asked that was different. Small. Ordinary. The kind of change that does not make headlines and does not need to just two people in a long marriage beginning again. Steve Harvey, in the same interview where he spoke about the episode, was asked what he remembered most clearly from the taping. The moment that stayed with him. Her laugh, he said immediately. At the end, when they won, and Kenneth said that was all you, she laughed, and it was a real laugh, not a polite one, not a careful one. A real one. I hadn't heard that laugh from her in the whole 2 hours she'd been in that building. He was quiet for a moment. That's what I think about that laugh. Because that's what we're all out here trying to find our way back to, isn't it? The unguarded version of ourselves. Denise Thibodeau framed and hung the cast photo from the Family Feud taping in her apartment. Her mother is in the center of it, laughing. Really laughing. It is the only photo of her mother that she has ever seen where Gloria is not, in some small way, looking after someone else in the frame. In this one, she is just there, present, herself enough.